You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
I said, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. I said, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. We're gonna drink a fine whiskey and smoke a really fine cigar.
Oh, there it is.
Yep.
It is time for happy hour. It is the Man Cave Happy Hour, whiskey, cigar, spirits, stories that go along with it. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
I am Matt Fox.
We are in the palatial Podcast Detroit Northville studios.
You know, we haven't had an episode here in a hot second.
Together? No, it's been a little bit. So,
because last time you were in studio,
yeah,
I wasn't.
That's it.
And I had to watch what you were doing, and it just killed me.
I live here. I live here. I love this space. I just love hearing my own voice. But I just come in, put the headphones on, and talk to myself in the microphone.
I'm Jamie Flanagan. 1935.
Yeah, that's it. One of the 40 podcasts today. But so we're having some fun, Matt.
Yeah.
We've made some connections, and that's the great thing about the Man Cave is meeting people and
Yes.
making connections
Yes.
and just sharing the love for the spirits. And so we got all the bourbon clubs and the whiskey clubs and Facebook groups that we belong to and all the social medias.
Right.
And every once in a while, we'll get somebody, that follows us instead of us like being lurkers and following them. And we get all excited.
You mean lightly stalking?
Yeah.
No, that's the power of social media, and that's the power of
Right.
what we are trying to do is
Yeah.
just get ourselves out there, get the Man Cave out there, and help folks learn with us, because you and I we're still novices after
Sure.
doing this for a few years, right?
yeah.
We have
So-
still no idea what the hell we're doing.
Admittedly uninformed. Yes.
But that's what the Man Cave is all about, is learning and the power of social media. And we have a great Twitter page, right? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden we got a follow. And it was from the Rabbit Hole Distillery. And I
You were so excited.
I was really excited.
You were like the
about
girl
that.
with the nutcracker. You were like, oh.
Like, look what just happened.
Yeah.
But, I sent them a message. I'm like, hey, thank you for the follow. Really,
Right.
Thank you so much. By the way, we have the silly little podcast. It's called the Man Cave Happy Hour. We'd love to learn about, the distillery, the story behind the Rabbit Hole. And, fortunately, they reached out, and we actually have
Yay.
the digital brand ambassador with us tonight, Mr. Adam Edwards. Adam, welcome to the Man Cave.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Jamie. How y'all doing tonight?
Excellent, Adam. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because I had heard about Rabbit Hole. It's a newer brand out there, and
It's no more than, I think, 10 years old.
right.
Yeah.
And so we were like, oh, okay, let's get this. And from what I understand, there's a pretty interesting story there. But before we get into that story,
You're going to tell a different story?
yeah, no, well, Adam, tell me about your childhood.
Well, I got to tell you right away, I'm noticing. I wish I'd have done a little research on my tech here, because I think there we go. That's more like it.
Hey.
There you go. Now the rabbit hole actually reads rabbit hole.
Oh, there it
Some
is.
weird
Yeah.
hieroglyphic. There you go. All right, cool.
We were reversed.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
Second verse. All right. So, Adam, thank you for joining us in the Man Cave. Really do appreciate it. Hey, honestly, tell us about your childhood.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm gonna give you my favorite opening line for my favorite Steve Martin movie.
Oh.
I was born a poor black child in southern Georgia. I think it's like from The Jerk or something.
Yes,
Yes,
I love
that's
that
exactly
movie.
what it's from.
So I am from here in Louisville, Kentucky, where the distillery is born. I was born here in Louisville. I actually live right over the river in southern Indiana. I met a girl from southern Indiana, and she like drugged me over there, and I'm like desperately trying to come back. I mean, southern Indiana is great, but I'm a Louisville guy. I've lived here my whole life, so. I will say this about southern Indiana: we get the best view of Louisville than anybody in Louisville.
I would imagine, yeah.
Being from Kentucky, you're gonna be a bourbon person. I mean, you just are. Bourbon is just in your blood. So I've been a bourbon guy my whole life, and this is really I say this, and I don't know if anyone ever believes me, but I am like living my dream.
Yeah.
I am a really lucky guy. I get to do what I love for a living, which is just talk bourbon for a living. I just don't know if it could get any better than that, honestly.
You know, were you actually born with a bottle of bourbon in your hand when you came out?
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, might as well. But I do know that my mother would do that thing where, like, when I was teething, just rub a little bourbon on my gums to calm me down, and it seemed like it just sunk right in. You know?
Sure.
My granddad did the exact same thing. It was whiskey.
That's old school.
Yeah.
Whiskey and bourbon on the gums, man, and I shut the hell up after that.
Yeah, it calms you right down.
Yep.
It still works, honestly.
Sure.
If I'm having a rough day, I just reach over, just rub a little bourbon on my gums.
So there is an incredible history already, and correct us if we're wrong. Rabbit Hole Distillery is no more than 10 years old. It started in 2012.
Yeah, so actually a little less than that. The name didn't even get established until 2012.
Mm-hmm.
We started distilling in 2014. We were
Okay.
on the shelf at 2 years old in 2016. In 2018, this distillery opened to the public.
Oh my goodness.
And by the end of 2018, we were on the Bourbon Trail,
Wow.
which is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
And just this past year, just within the last few months, we were promoted to a heritage distillery on the Bourbon Trail, which is the top tier.
Congratulations.
Of the Bourbon Trail. So thank you very much. It's been hard work, but it's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the distillery in mid 2018, like right after the distillery opened, as part of the tour department. I started running the tour department, and then last March, when the world ended for hospitality,
Yes.
they basically put me in this position of digital brand ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
I have wanted to be a brand ambassador for a bourbon distillery for almost 2 decades now, and they really made this dream come true for me.
Mm-hmm.
And to do it in this really new format of being a digital brand ambassador, which is, I mean, what we're doing right now, this is what I do kind of all day long. I just reach out to people on digital platforms and talk Kentucky bourbon and Rabbit Hole. And like I said, I'm just a super lucky guy.
It's living the dream.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's some of my most cherished moments of the week and my year are the times that I get to sit down with Matt and cool people that we meet and do this, talk whiskey.
Talk bourbon, talk whiskey. So are you hiring?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, my.
Yes. So we
yes,
actually
always.
we have some friends of the Man Cave, and it's the Kentucky Bourbon Boys.
Yeah.
They actually, they've been on the show with us a few times. And just
Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Is that who you're talking about? Or
Kentucky
Bourbon Boys?
Kentucky Bourbon Boys.
Kentucky Bourbon Boys.
They
I
do
know
the
that,
they do the
Sorry, there's
curated
like 3 or 4
tours.
different ones.
Yeah.
They do those curated tours.
Yeah, they're friends of the show. They've been on with us.
Yeah, very cool stuff. Yeah.
So they're coming by in the van full of people, dropping them off and making sure they get to and from safely. So we're dying to come out,
Yes.
and we'll be hitting it for sure. That's my goal for the year. That's when things open up this summer, we're gonna hit the trail.
Hey, you've got my contact. As soon as you're in town, seriously, just send me a message, and I'll take you through the distillery. We'll have a great time.
Yeah, you got a couch I can sleep on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We'll be in it.
Because honestly, I sleep on it a lot. So, depends on how late I get home.
Yeah.
As a married fellow of 21 years almost, the couch and I, we get along really, really well.
It happens.
What did I say dumb today? What did
Or what am I going to say dumb to?
I hear you guys. I mean, we're pregnant with our first child right now. So
congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm making terrible decisions every single day in the lives of my wife. So, I'm messing up like all the time. So.
Get them out of the way now.
Yeah.
Get them out of the way now.
I have 3 daughters, Adam. My daughter's at 25, 22, and 20. She'll be 21 in November of this year. I have made plenty of mistakes in my fatherhood. It's okay. They'll forgive you when they're 25. It's
good.
All right.
Hey, we just found out we're having a girl, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Good on you, man. That's excellent. Well, we'll have a toast to that.
Yes.
So Adam, tell me a little bit about, because I believe the history of the distillery and how it started was all due to love to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. So it was all love, and it was. If I pronounce his name, I apologize.
Cave.
Okay.
Cave.
Yeah.
Cave.
Cave.
Yeah.
He met his wife in Kentucky, right? And she pulled him into this thing called bourbon. So help me understand a little bit about how that came to be and why he started doing what he's doing today, or what he did.
So they were actually living in Chicago, and Cave was a psychologist. In fact, he was a psychologist for over 20 years before he became a bourbon distiller, which is like, not your normal route to being a bourbon distiller.
So that wasn't the first time he said, "Tell me about your childhood," right? So
exactly. No, I've heard it a million times. That's right. I will tell you, Cave has said to me several times, "The life of a psychoanalyst never ends." So they weren't living in Kentucky yet when they met. They were both living in Chicago. They met, and Heather really, Heather is the Louisville influence. So Heather is from Louisville, just like I am, and she really turned Cave into a bourbon drinker. And he was really like a big Scotch and gin guy. And they moved down here to Kentucky, and he just fell in love with bourbon, with the history of Louisville, the industry, which, I mean, you all know, like the industry of bourbon is unlike any other industry out there. It's all about love and passion. Like if you're not passionate about it, you're in the wrong industry. Go find something else to do, right? Because people know when you're not passionate about something. He very quickly fell in love with all of that. In fact, the whole name of Rabbit Hole, it really came from a conversation that he had with Heather. And, after he kind of did all this research and he met people in the industry and learned about the culture of it, he said, "Honey, let's do it. Let's sell the house. Let's mortgage the house. Let's sell the business and start a bourbon distillery." And she said, "This obsession of yours, Cave, it's going to lead the family down the rabbit hole. I hope you know." And then there's no going back. And she wasn't wrong, right? So that's a really big thing with us here in the distillery is find your passion and go all in, because once you do that, there's no going back. Once you find that passion, we just did a whole campaign of There's No Going Back, and we found all these amazing creatives, people like artists and musicians and hat makers and photographers and all these people that they just looked at their job they had during the day and they said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go find my passion. And they just left and they never looked back, and they're as happy as they ever will be for the rest of their lives because they're doing what they love. And so that's something that kind of resonates through everybody here at Rabbit Hole. I am no exception to that. I am obsessed with bourbon. I've been obsessed with bourbon for a long time, but just being able to talk about it for a living. I am a really lucky guy, like I said earlier, and Cave is really living his dream. He's making bourbon for a living. And, you talk to Cave, he'll tell you, I can't imagine doing anything else. I just can't imagine it.
We talked to a local distiller, and he, I think it was the same sort of thing. So you guys, right out of the barrel, you didn't, you waited, right? You didn't source it first, and then, so you waited, and you have no idea what that's going to be in 2 years. I mean, you have an idea, but, you don't actually know. And that's got to be such a just a leap of faith, to do that and do that really with your family in tow. It's just amazing.
It really is. And the smart thing that Cave did is he surrounded himself with giants of the industry, right? So, with Cave Hill, which is something I know we're going to be tasting a little bit later on, but Cave Hill, he started making that himself, just kind of off to the side, and he started meeting people in the industry. So people like, Dave Shurek or Jim Rutledge, Jimmy Russell, Julian Van Winkle, Larry Ebersold is a huge mentor to Cave. He was the master distiller for Seagram's or LDI or MGP, any of that.
Right.
And he, he really, really loved what Cave was doing with this 4-grain. And so, that was the whole thing, is that Cave doesn't know everything. Nobody knows everything in this industry. You surround yourself with people that, are talented in this and talented in that to kind of help you inform that.
Right.
So, you don't know. Now, like you said, we didn't source. Right. That was a huge thing with Cave. He's like, if I'm going to open a distillery, I want to make the bourbon. I want to make the whiskey. I don't want to buy somebody else's liquid.
Right.
What we did do was contract distill. Just found a distillery in northern Kentucky that had the same size still that we bought from Vendome already. And we're going to install in our distillery using our grains, our yeast, the barrels from Kelvin, all of these things that make, Rabbit Hole very distinct and special. We just made it at another distillery until our distillery was open, And then once we activated this still, there's very little loss from that contract distillery to the Louisville distillery because everything is exactly the same. Yeah. So that way,
Nice.
It doesn't change overnight and you don't, piss off all your consumers.
Right.
Giving you a different product.
One of the things that I was reading and kind of understood was that Cave is really the genius behind the mash bill of Rabbit Hole itself.
Okay.
And, to not really know much about the industry and then learn and surround yourself with those individuals and then create your own mash bill and then put it out on the market and for it to be sought after, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Wow. That's passion dreams come true.
Yeah.
It really is.
All right. So where do we go from here? Where are you gonna take us on this rabbit hole adventure?
Well, let's you know what, like I like to say, let's get to drinking.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and just dive into Cave Hill.
All right, let's crack on the Cave Hill. So is there things that we should know about the mash bills first?
Yeah,
is there a foundation while we crack this bad boy open?
We haven't even cracked. It's still sealed shut.
We behaved ourselves. We were like, we waited for the show. It was like, and these came in because we had a couple of delays. So we've had these since before the first of the year.
Yes, we have.
And we've been behaving ourselves.
Don't ask me how, but
the thing I'm going to tell you about this, and we'll really dive in, to this here in a few minutes. But the thing I always say about this is where this was born, where Cave Hill was born, was the idea that Cave was very much welcomed by the bourbon community. The whole industry. I think he expected to kind of walk into this industry as an outsider and face a lot of obstacles, but everybody in this industry is friendly. I mean, it's unlike any industry out there. But I think there was some frustration to Cave's part where, you would walk into a liquor store, you see 20 or 30 bottles of bourbon on the shelf. They're all made by like 3 or 4 people, and you can't tell what's in any bottle, right? The most you will know is like the proof and sometimes the age. If you look on that bottle on the side, it says the mash bill on the back. It says the minimum age of the bourbon as well, because we want to be really transparent with people.
I love that.
Yeah, it's right on the side of the bottle, 4 grain. The mash bill is right there in front of you, because a lot of folks, they might like the corn forward, or they're looking for more of a barley feel to it, to their bourbon or what have you. So that's amazing that you put it right on the side of the bottle, because we have to do research sometimes.
Oh yeah, because we'll do like, if we don't have an amazing guest, we'll do like just a taste, and we'll pull something off, or we'll go to the store, buy something we haven't tried before, and we'll just taste it ourselves and come up with some kind of ridiculous thing to say about it. And, a lot of times we're like really searching to find a mash bill, and some people have it, and it's a bloody secret, and it's like, I think that, I don't like that.
No, I like to see the mash bill on the side of the bottle. You know why? That almost has like your heart on your sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
You're just putting yourself out there. And,
I like that.
And you really care about what you do.
I like that.
For folks to understand what is in the bottle itself. And that's putting your heart on your sleeve.
All right, so his heart's on
really
his sleeve.
About that.
It's right there, and transparency is a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
and the aroma is pretty wonderful as well.
I
will say before we dive into this,
yes,
we're going to do something that's really special to me.
Okay.
This is what I do every time I do anything like this, whether I'm drinking with somebody for the first time or the 20th time or the 100th time, or I'm doing a podcast or a YouTube channel, any of this.
Let's do it.
Before we dive into this, you can really learn a lot about somebody by asking, where they grew up, what school they went to, what their favorite animal is, what's their favorite color, all that stuff, right?
Yes.
But you don't really know somebody until you have that first drink with them. So cheers.
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 Thank you, sir.
All right. Now we're off to a good start, right?
All right.
Always good to have that first drink.
The night has just started, so
It's just starting.
Let's talk about that nose. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Because that nose,
it's unique.
It is very unique, and it's got a really nice warmth to it too.
Mm-hmm.
Just on the nose, you can feel that there's going to be some warmth to the Cave Hill.
Oh
my goodness.
I'm not. It's not flowery.
No.
And it's not. I wouldn't necessarily call it sweet. It's sweet, but it's not the typical. It's not typical. right? So it's not a typical nose. I think when I said unique, it's like my mother says I'm handsome. It's not that kind of
Very
unique.
special. Very special
Mom
boy.
says I'm very handsome.
Thanks, Mom.
But it's very nice and it's not typical. It's sweet, but it's not a typical sweet.
I almost want to, on that nose, I'm getting a little bit of fruit, and I'm trying to place that fruit itself, and it might be hitting me right now because I had a pear for breakfast this morning.
Okay.
With my oatmeal.
that matters.
Yeah, and I'm getting a little bit of like that fleshy piece of a pear or an apple. Or
Did you
something.
floss after that? Maybe that's,
right?
Did you?
Maybe you set some pear in there still. No, you're right on with that. There is the esters during fermentation for Cave Hill really produce some really great green fruit notes.
Okay.
So like green apple and pear, absolutely. I'm like 1,000% with you on that. And then, I will say you were kind of talking about like sweetness with this, but it's not like your typical sweetness. I think when people, think bourbon sweetness, they think caramel and vanilla, right?
Right.
There is caramel and vanilla on this, but I think the sweetness is really informed by that honey malt in this. So, this is a 4-grain bourbon, and of course, 70% corn.
Yeah.
And then there's 3 other grains in there: 10% malted wheat, 10% malted barley, and 10% honey malted barley, where they toast that grain a little bit. Even though there's wheat in this, that malted wheat is not the flavoring grain. It's not the secondary grain. That malted wheat is really just there to help along some of the texture of this, to make it very soft and silky.
Yeah.
But really that malted barley and the honey malted barley, those are the secondary and tertiary grains that give that flavor.
Right.
And so the sweetness for me is very much like honeycomb. It is honeycomb.
It's got a sweet, I'm trying to place it, but it's got somewhat of a creamy finish to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that honey malt, I think the honey malt kind of informs the finish on this as well. I kind of came from the tasting. I always think about flavor progression, right? So I kind of think about how it works its way across that palate. And Cave Hill, for me, it starts spicy. So it starts with kind of like what you call like baking spices, like cinnamon and allspice, even clove a little bit, like almost numbing spice, just a little bit.
A little mint.
And then that green fruit thing right in the mid palate, like green apple and pear.
Yeah.
But then that finish, that creamy finish, it's almost like vanilla custard and like honey a little bit. And that is that honey malt, I think, sort of finishes on the end there.
That warmth, and we used to call it burn, Adam, and it kind of created a negative connotation. So we started calling it warmth, and the warmth that I feel the vanilla warmth. In all honesty, you don't feel that taste. It's more of that. It's sitting in the back of my throat, and it's just lingering in such an amazing way that I'm going to wait for a second before I go in and dive in again, because I want to enjoy what I'm experiencing on the back end. Right.
Well, let's talk ingredients.
Yeah. Right.
So when people think about bourbon and whiskey, and you say, what are the ingredients? What's giving the flavor to this bottle? A lot of people, they talk grain, they talk yeast, they talk even water. But I think the barrel gets a lot left out when they talk about flavor. I think people really talk about smoothness, as much as I hate that word in terms of bourbon.
We haven't said it yet, yes.
Depth, right, is the barrel. But they don't really think about what the flavor gives from the barrel. Think about being a chef. If you want to be a great chef, you want to start with the greatest ingredients. Okay. And we'll talk about grain as we go on, but let's talk barrel. You want to get great barrels. And so, if you look at that bottle, it shows the mash bill, right? But there's something else that bottle label shows as well. And there's a little seal on there. It has a little lion that is Kelvin Cooperage. That is our Cooper. Kelvin Cooperage, which is only about 9 minutes from here. It's like 4.5 miles in South Louisville. They give us these barrels that they have not only charred, but they have toasted first. So it's first toasted and then charred over oak fires. They do not use a gas flame. They build oak fires underneath every single barrel. And so if you're a griller like me, like I've got a grill and a smoker at home. My smoker is propane, because when you're cooking something for 14 hours, you want it to be very exact in terms of temperature.
Yes, you
don't
do.
have to keep throwing wood in there. Like wood for smoking, fine, but not for heat. My grill, though, is absolutely charcoal grill. because it gives better flavor. It gives a deeper flavor and a richer flavor than propane does. So if you think about that in terms of flavor development of that barrel, when you start toasting that barrel over that oak fire, first of all, it's the same wood that they're making the barrel out of.
Right.
So the same wood you're going to get out of the barrel for aging, you're going to get putting back into those char and toast levels when you're toasting and charring it.
Huh.
But then that toasting level, it's a little bit of a lower flame. It's like 20 minutes, like 15, 20 minutes that they're toasting it with this kind of a small flame. It's warming up the inside of that barrel, and it's pulling like the lignans out of there and kind of bringing them to the inside of those staves. Those lignans, I mean, the most famous lignan in oak for bourbon drinkers is vanillin. Tastes and smells just like vanilla, right? That's why you call it vanillin. But also there's a lot of spice that comes out of that barrel.
Right.
And then when you char it for like 30, 60, 90 seconds, we use level 3 char on this, which is like in between 60 and 90 seconds. That's going to kind of seal that flavor in there and really intensify it. So once you put this bourbon in here for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, it's going to start pulling not just the sweetness out of the barrel, but it's going to start pulling spice out of the barrel.
Okay.
Right? So when you're using an ingredient like honey malt that is obviously going to give a lot of sweet malty tones, you're going to need some spice from that barrel to balance it. And that is like the word of the day when it comes to Rabbit Hole. It's all about balance. That is real luxury, and real bourbon is having balance. It shouldn't be overwhelming for spice or overwhelming for sweet or overwhelming for vanilla. Like there should be a balance, dark, spice, sweet, because you have such a balanced progression of flavor through there.
Right. Man, I got to tell you that a lot of folks talk about daily drinkers, and this would be something that I would not consider a daily drinker. It's got to be something that is for an occasion, right? Something that you would want to have around and share with your friends, whether it be birthdays or be a really nice gift for somebody. But as a daily drinker, it's too good to drink it every day. It's something that you want to savor, in all honesty. And that's where I come from when it comes to bourbon is, there are your daily drinkers out there, but there are other bourbons that you really want to share with your friends. And this is one of those experiences that you'd want to share with your friends, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm sharing it with you guys.
Thank you. Right.
Absolutely, right? I mean, that's the great thing about bourbon is just, experiencing these flavors and these tastes with others. A lot of my job, I always say this, and it sounds terrible, I'm drinking alone, but I'm not really drinking alone. I'm drinking with others across digital platforms, or I'm experimenting with some stuff that we're working on, things like that. And that's kind of the work part. But, when I'm really trying to relax and have a great time, like experiencing a bottle of Rabbit Hole or whatever, opening something new and kind of working through those flavors with others, it's priceless, right? That's a priceless experience to have.
Oh, man. So, I'm looking forward to getting into the high gold in a moment. But as you guys have gone through.
I'm going for number 2 on this. I don't know about you.
Go for it, man. But, I'd really like to understand a little bit about how you guys have survived through, as I like to call it, the COVIDian timeline that we're all living in right now. How have you guys done? You came through it, it looks like with flying colors, but what are some of the changes that you had to do within the distillery itself to, one, keep the employees safe, and then 2, for your visitors?
So, production stayed busy, right? Our production department stayed very busy. Honestly, bottle sales have been fine through this. I think people, they couldn't go out to bars and restaurants. They're going to still go to liquor stores and buy the product. And Rabbit Hole, we were already on an upward, trajectory for our sales, and we've maintained that. All the other departments in terms of like HR and sales and marketing, all that. I mean, marketing, obviously with digital, I'm in the marketing department. Yes. Even though I kind of consider myself part of hospitality because I'm just, talking about this stuff with people. I still feel like I'm hospitality, right? Yeah. They did fine, especially marketing. I mean, it was kind of, that door is open for digital marketing, and it's been fun to kind of blaze that path. The department that really suffered at the distillery was hospitality, and really that's a microcosm of the entire industry. Hospitality, bartenders and wait staff and servers and tour guides of all industries, not just bourbon, but tour guides across the tour industry has really suffered since last March.
Right.
So, we really tried to support our local bartenders as much as we could. I know last, I think it was April or May, we launched a campaign called To Dream Inside, where, it was basically, I think it was on Instagram. If you shared a post from Rabbit Hole and tagged 2 friends and put the hashtag To Dream Inside, we would donate money to the Tales of the Cocktail Foundation. And we ended up donating something like, oh gosh, I want to say it was somewhere around $50,000, maybe even more, maybe up to $200,000. Honestly, now I'm thinking about it, that went straight into the pockets of bartenders, and a lot of that was here local in Louisville. And so that was really the frustrating part. We shut down our tours, so we closed to the public on March 12th of last year. So we're very, very close to celebrating our 1-year anniversary of having no tours at the Rabbit Hole, which is just terrible,
Oh
right?
my God, yeah.
It's awful. And so, Cave was, first of all, Cave did something amazing for us, that he kept all of hospitality on the payroll.
Nice.
As long as he could.
Yes.
And just kept paying our wages and our basically our salaries for what we were doing before for several months. And while we kind of tried to figure out how we were going to keep going, how were we going to keep, delivering bottles to people and giving an experience. And that's really where this role of digital ambassador was born, was bringing this experience to people in their homes. And so, we really sort of blazed that trail of doing things like virtual tours and virtual tastings. We have a package that if you buy, I think it's like on reservebar.com, if you buy 3 of the bottles of Rabbit Hole, you get a free virtual tasting, an hour-long tasting with me. And I do the majority of those, and it's super fun. I mean, I do them like right up here. I'll take you around the distillery. I get in a lot of Facebook groups and give virtual tours of the distillery and walk around with like my phone on a selfie stick, just like getting underneath the fermenters and stuff. Just so when anybody, when anybody wants to see, I'll show it off. And so, but that was really the struggle, was how do we support the hospitality here in Louisville? And that's just it's been rough. But it's starting, we see the light, right?
Yeah.
And things are starting to open up a little bit more. I'm just ready for things, hopefully at the end of this year, to kind of get back to normal, and to see my friends who are in the hospitality industry here in Louisville and across the country get back to doing what they love, which is serving people and spreading the gospel of spirits, but of course bourbon and Rabbit Hole to everybody, right?
Yeah. So, in the spirit of, helping to raise money and everything, you guys actually have a partnership with the James Beard Foundation as well, right?
We do.
Help me understand that. Yeah, help me understand that, what you guys are doing with James Beard Foundation.
So the James Beard Foundation was an excellent fit for us because, as we'll find out in a second, we're getting ready to go to a second bourbon. I think a lot of people, when you look at distilleries, a lot of distilleries have like, bourbon or one brand, like they don't put the same name on them because they want to kind of differentiate them.
Yeah.
For us, they both say Rabbit Hole. They, one says Cave Hill, one says High Gold.
Right.
They're both Rabbit Hole bourbons,
right?
But they're completely different. And where that comes from is that idea of, I was kind of talking about being a chef and starting, with really great ingredients. But, let's talk about when you go out to a nice restaurant, which is, tough to do right now, but you go out to a really nice restaurant.
Fair.
And you sit down and you order your meal, and then you've ordered your appetizers, your entree, and then this person comes over and they say, "Hi, I'm the sommelier. I see that you have ordered so-and-so. I'm going to recommend so-and-so wine to go with that."
Right.
Why doesn't that exist in whiskey? Why doesn't that exist in whiskey?
Right.
Why can't you pair whiskey with food and cocktails and appetizers the same way you do wine? You can. And so that was the whole thing with the James Beard Foundation, partnering with these incredible chefs, paying in to these foundations that help support chefs around the country to continue to do what they do and create, right? There's a saying that we have here at Rabbit Hole that production is repetitive, creation is personal. And so when you have that mindset and you're a chef and you're creating these incredible meals, let's get you an incredible spirit to go along with it to help support that creativity. And I mean, I'll tell you what, go ahead and pour some High Gold, because I think this is an awesome segue into that. Cave Hill is like the Cabernet. It pairs with like big, meaty, savory dishes because it has a nice sweetness, a nice fruitiness
Yeah,
to it
yeah.
that goes really well.
Look
with
at that wine
right?
knowledge, Adam. That's amazing. Yeah.
You like that, right?
Yeah.
You like that, right? It's pretty good, right? Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about terroir here in a second. So okay.
Hold on. I got to do it. Hold on.
There it is. Pop.
Oh, nice. I heard it. It's a good. Those corks are good. We got good corks. They make a good sound when you pop them off on the microphone. Now, High Gold, as opposed to K-Fill, High Gold is like the Pinot Noir, right? It is a little more subtle, and it needs a little more nuance when you're pairing it. So, on paper, High Gold looks really similar to K-Fill. It's kind of the same if you go into maybe not as a nice restaurant. You go, just give me a red wine. I ordered a hamburger, give me red wine. Well,
right.
It's a bourbon just like K-Fill is. But let's be a little more upscale with it, right? Let's really be snobs about this because that's the way the industry is going, right? Everybody, we're all like snobs. We're all so nerdy about bourbon. We're really going to get into the differences here. This is still 70% corn. Let me switch my glasses here. There we go. So this is still 70% corn.
Yes.
And 30% malted grains, just like K-Fill, still 95 proof, same barrels from Kelvin, same char level, same general age. But this is 25% malted rye and 5% malted barley. So this is a high rye bourbon. Generally, high rye bourbons are more savory than non-rye bourbons. Like K-Fill has no rye in it.
Decidedly.
So that
Yep, decidedly different nose on it. Yeah,
I just stuck my nose in it
different,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Completely different. Like you would think with that high rye content, it would just be like a punch in the face, just it's lots of spice. But it's just like toasted coconut and orange peel and just butterscotch and caramel. It's really sweet and very. I love this word. Very supple.
Supple.
It's a very supple nose. It's a good word,
That's with
right?
a capital S, yes.
So we got people.
S.
It's like we have the benefit of having these bottles in front of us, as do you. But we got people tuning in, like Mike Dwyer, friend of the show, listening in. He's like, "You guys make me so thirsty."
That's your job.
Yeah,
thirsty. That's what we like.
Success.
Right?
So, Mike, you know where we're at. Next time we're in studio, you come by and we'll give you a dram. So
there it is.
Oh my God! But so it's. It's not spicy, but it's a different nose.
It's got a very. It's not a strong nose at all for me.
There was all those flavors that you mentioned, and I was like, oh crap, I'm like so susceptible to the power of suggestion. Because when you said butterscotch, I'm like, holy crap, yep, there it is. You know,
you said supple, and I'm thinking as I'm nosing this, I'm thinking subtle. At the same time, it's got a very subtle nose to it.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's really, you think about the malting process. So the malting process, something that Cave, really discovered, I think after let's talk like history of bourbon, right?
Please.
Before Prohibition, there was something like 2,000 distilleries in Kentucky. I mean, it was a huge amount of distilleries, and even more across the U.S., along Pennsylvania and Ohio, just amazing distilleries.
Sure.
After Prohibition, that number fell to 13. 13.
Whoa.
So when you go from 2000 to 13, you start losing those really distinct mash bills.
Yeah.
And after Prohibition, it was all about, corn obviously being the main ingredient. Rye was obviously a huge spirit, but that secondary grain was always like rye or wheat. Okay. The malted grain was just for science. It was just to be there to convert those simple complex starches into simple sugars for the yeast to eat. Mm-hmm. It was creating diastasis and amylase to get that yeast to have something to subsist on to create the alcohol. But before Prohibition, there was a lot more malt going on because it was about the flavor.
Wow.
And so you take rye, and this is German rye grain that we use for this. This is why we named this after a German immigrant named Christian Heigold.
Christian Heigold, yeah.
Christian Heigold, incredible story of that guy. We wanted to put a German malt or German rye in here. But when you malt it, you kind of take away some of the teeth of that rye grain. So the really kind of strong, spicy notes. And it gets a little more, like you said, Matt, subtle.
Yeah.
A little more citrus, a little more softness to it. But we're going to talk about K-Fill, right? So K-Fill, very spicy up front, lots of green notes in the mid-palate, very sweet on the finish. High Gold, exact opposite. Really sweet up front on the palate, instead of green fruits, more citrus, like that orange peel and maybe a little aromatic note on the mid palate. And then the finish happens down here where Cave Hill kind of happens here on one of my other favorite words, jowls. I love that word, jowls. This finish happens right here. You call it warmth. I call it the Kentucky hug.
Yeah, I love that.
It's the Kentucky hug. That's how you know it's working.
Yeah.
And it is straight cinnamon. It's just cinnamon right here.
So what I was getting,
that is really what that malted grain is doing.
right. as I took the first dram there, it's it rode the top of my mouth. Right, it wasn't like on my tongue. It was riding the roof of my mouth is where it was all happening, and it was like an icing, like a bundt cake icing, is what I was getting from it. And it just rode the top of the mouth, and then it kind of skipped to the back for me, and
Did it
then
go
just
quickly?
kind of and it went down, the warmth down, down.
Yeah, for me, I got a little bit of I felt sugar. And I might go back to what I had for breakfast this morning, the oatmeal. I didn't floss, but I put light brown sugar in my oatmeal with the pears, and I'm getting a little bit of brown sugar out of, as it sits on my palate itself. Personally, that's where I'm coming from with this. And up front, like you said, Adam, it's not harsh up front. It doesn't have that bite like some bourbons do.
The nose for me had like soft leather, like natural. I want to say like a natural, not like a hard saddle leather, but just like a nice fancy.
Ooh,
soft,
saddle leather. I see someone else has a wine background, like a nice Cote de Rhone. Nice saddle leather.
Yeah. But this was more of a soft plush leather aroma to it on the nose for me.
It's like you're chewing on a crop.
And it was sweeter in the taste than I expected from the nose.
I call that bookshelf. When you talk about like soft leather, like aged leather, like bookshelf leather, right? Like spine of a book, like. You open up a really old book and you get that kind of earthy, leathery. Yeah, the front really has that. And I think that malt, people hear malt and they think sweet.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of sweetness to malt. But there's also this like almost umami sort of side to malt that gives you not just sweetness, but also gives you like this earthy, almost really hard to put your finger on.
Yeah.
And that's where you start like kind of talking about like leathery, tobacco sort of aromas, like floral aromas. And I think High Gold really shows that off. And then, of course, the barrels here, again, those Kelvin barrels, they're really helping ride that cinnamon out.
Yeah.
Because you would think there is like a tiny bit, and I get it more on like the second and third sip of High Gold, like black pepper, which is coming from that rye grain, because rye is always going to give some of those peppery notes. But the barrel is still providing the majority of the spice in this bourbon rather than the rye grain.
Now that I've sipped it a couple of times, I'm smelling the caramel. Now that I've sipped it a few times,
right? Your palate's kind of settled down after the Cave Hill, and then after
it's grabbing the caramel for me now.
Yeah, I can see why you call this a Pinot Noir of between the Cab and then the Pinot Noir. I can see why you do that because I like the word subtle because it has a nice warmth to it on the back end, but it doesn't hit you so hard up front, and you don't realize what you're tasting until about 30 seconds afterwards, right? I can see why you call it the Pinot Noir of the two.
So I would have this guy either while I was grilling, before the meal, or afterwards.
I can see that.
Yeah, this is where I would put
what I
him.
do with it.
Yeah,
I actually make a white chicken chili. And so I call it white chicken chili.
How's this hold up to the Mountain
white.
Dew?
Nice. But I do this chicken chili, and it's not really white. I mean, I use like tomatoes in it, so it always kind of looks red, but I just kind of call it white chicken chili. But the base of that chili is onions.
Oh.
And so what I'll do is I'll throw my chicken in there and sear it, and then take it out, and I throw my chopped onions, red and white, by the way.
Nice.
Red and white onions. Throw them in there, but I deglaze them with High Gold. And then I pair High Gold. If you eat that chili and drink the High Gold, it's amazing because chicken chili is not like, it's not real aggressive unless you want it to be. But I don't make mine super aggressive. It's a little softer. It's a little milder.
Sure.
And it's about the richness of flavor. It matches so well with that kind of light light, sort of just barely spicy on the end, sort of flavor profile of High Gold, that's an awesome pairing. Whereas like Cave Hill is really for like pot roast and hamburgers,
Right.
that steak, things like that.
So Jamie's on midwinter break next week.
Yep.
Yep. We're coming to your place.
My wife will be so happy.
How far along is she now?
She is at 14 weeks. In fact, I'm hoping a lot of my friends don't see this because we're actually announcing on Sunday
Oh, shit.
on Facebook. But I mean, it's fine. It's fine. She doesn't watch this, so it'll be fine.
Fair play.
You heard it here
that's
on
like my
first.
wife.
Yeah.
The family on Sunday. So the family knows. The family knows. But all the rest of my, 3,000 Facebook friends and Instagram friends, they don't know yet. But they'll find out this Sunday. But yeah, she's about 14 weeks along, and unfortunately, when you all come down, you're going to have to share the couch. So.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah,
I'll cuddle.
yeah.
I'll cuddle. I don't
Yeah,
care.
Who's going to be the little spoon?
That would be me.
Okay. Yeah.
So you were talking about. You actually said the word tobacco not too long ago,
Sure, yeah.
right? And there is something that you guys also do with Diesel cigars. And one of your chefs, I think it's AJ Fernandez, actually created a binder utilizing the Rabbit Hole bourbon. Is that
Ooh.
correct?
Absolutely. So, Diesel is a General Cigar Company. I always forget it's National Cigar Company or General Cigar Company.
I think it's General.
General Cigar Company. So they created two cigars for us. They're called the Diesel Whiskey Rose cigars. And so Diesel cigars are already known for their kind of aggressive flavor profiles.
Mm-hmm.
But these Whiskey Rose cigars, they took the binders and they aged them in our barrels to kind of tame down that aggressiveness. And it's a really, really interesting thing that these cigars do. So there's two of them. One of them, they take those binders and they age them in Cave Hill barrels.
Man.
So it gives this great kind of, really kind of aromatic smell to the binder that matches. It kind of contrasts with the aromatic smell of the tobacco, the aroma to the tobacco. So that bourbon barrel is going to give a little bit more kind of like that brown sugar and spice against some of more of the floral notes that tobacco is going to give. But they created a second cigar that binder is actually aged in the Pedro Jimenez sherry casks for. I'd be like a weatherman and do this backwards. There we go.
Yeah.
This guy right here. This is the sherry finish, Derringer. And they finish those in those sherry casks after we're done with them. And that sherry cask, you would think with a sweeter cask, it gives a sweeter cigar. It actually gives a spicier cigar.
Really?
And so it's actually really amazing. If I'm drinking Cave Hill, here, I am actually smoking the Derringer finished cigar, the Pedro Jimenez sherry finished cigar.
You kind of mix them together?
Yeah, because that spiciness of the cigar kind of matches with the sweetness
of
of the finish of that bourbon.
Sure.
It's
And
beautiful.
then the same thing for the others. Like I use that Cave Hill finished cigar and smoke it with the Derringer when I'm drinking that. It's phenomenal. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
There's a pairing that we have to try.
Yeah.
Because every once in a while, Adam, we will have a cigar, and we'll talk about. There's a few folks here in the area that we're friendly with when it comes to cigars, and we enjoy smoking a cigar every once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
It's not an everyday thing like some folks. They're posting pictures on
I can't do
Facebook.
it every
Their
day.
breakfast
No.
cigar.
Yeah, breakfast cigar on the way to work. Yeah, I can't do that. But every once in a while, we love a good pairing when it comes to a cigar and a bourbon, and this is something that I would definitely want to try.
Yeah.
Personally. So
If I wasn't sitting on top of a distillery that was holding a lot of flammable liquid, I would probably be smoking a cigar right now, honestly. Yeah, they get a little funny about that here.
you think?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's great. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us in regards to what's going on with the distillery? Anything?
Are you guys booked up?
Yeah.
I had a friend heading down to the Kentucky Beer. Okay, bourbon's kicking in. I have a friend heading down to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, and they were trying to get an appointment to go in and tour a couple places. They're like, "Oh, we're full," and so they're trying for their trip on the way back up, and it's like full. So, how are you guys doing? Are you taking reservations, or what's going on? Are you full to the brim?
So we are not even open yet.
Oh, okay.
We're not. We are looking to open hopefully by the end of March.
Oh,
for
wow.
public tours, and even then it's going to be incredibly limited.
Yeah.
Production is king
Yeah.
here. We never want to interfere with production because That's what we're all about. We're producing bourbon. When I have these conversations with Kaveh, I'm like, bringing visitors in, and he has to remind me that visitors are great here, and that's awesome to share that experience, because that's what I'm really passionate about. Mm-hmm. But the bottles are the most important thing. Making the bourbon. So we've got to maintain that level of production and really, really protect that. So I'm hoping by the end of March we'll be open for tours. Right. And so right now we're not, but I know that, a lot of the distilleries around us, they're starting to open up very slowly. Yes. Like I can actually see Angel's Envy from here. That's how close we are to Angel's Envy. They're about 3 blocks away, and I can see them right over the overpass there. They're doing some like limited experiences. They're like tasting experiences. So they might be able to get in with them. But yeah, I really can't wait till we open again, because today's Tuesday, and it's 8:00 my time about.
Yep, just about here.
Up in our cocktail bar, completely empty. And it's just terrible, right? Like I can't wait until we're open again. I mean, we just kind of brought our bar staff back online to start getting ready and start creating a new menu for this cocktail bar, which is, I'm telling you, this cocktail bar, we call it Overlook, because there's glass all around this room, and it overlooks the distillery, but right down this hallway right here. I have the garage door closed, so it's not so loud, but the still is right there. So when you come up here for a drink, you can walk down this hallway, and you're face to face with the top of our still.
Sounds amazing.
So this is an incredible space. Yeah. It's an incredible space.
Because Jamie and I, Jamie actually has been doing weddings and events since 1989. I've been doing it since 1994 personally as well. This is the asshole that got me involved with weddings and events way back in the day. It's all his fault. But we love being around people. We love interacting with people. Being in the bars, being in the clubs, or what have you.
I've done a wedding since last February.
Yeah, I DJ'd a wedding for your family last year. But, we love being around people and not having that human experience to really understand that connection. That is something that's terribly missed, and I'm excited for everyone to open up, limited capacity as it may be. But as you open up, you got to be safe about it at the same time. So... What is that?
Well, that's why this is so important, right? Having this sort of outlet where you can at least connect with people kind of through your laptop or through your phone and still have this experience. I mean, I will tell you, once everything gets back to like, real hard air quotes here, normal. Yeah. When things get back to normal, this door is not shut. The door is open for these sort of digital experiences, and we're going to continue to offer that to bring people into our home here and to show off this incredible space we have and connect with people and talk about our drinks and what you can do with them and what makes them so special. And I'm hoping the rest of the industry kind of follows that lead.
So there's like 5 expressions of Rabbit Hole right now. Is that what I see over your shoulder?
So there's Cave Hill and High Gold that we've done tonight.
Right.
There's a rye called Boxer Grail. It's a 95.5 rye, and then even a gin. It's a London dry gin that we finished. You can see the color there. It's finished in those rye barrels. So
okay.
We empty those barrels. We put them in those rye barrels for like 6 months. It is delish. And then this last one over here, it's called Derringer. It's the sherry finish. So it's a wheated bourbon that's finished in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks for about 6 months, and it is phenomenal. But there are actually some limited bottlings that we're starting to produce. So we introduced our first limited offering in October, and it's called Founders Collection.
Okay.
So it's Boxer Grail. It's this rye right here, but it's cask strength. It's 6 years old, and it came from 7 total barrels. So it was something like 1,300 bottles, and that was it.
Yeah.
One of my friends, it's this guy, his name is Mike Klein, and he does, I think it's called Destination Bourbon, something like that on YouTube. He just posted a picture on Facebook earlier today, and he found a bottle somewhere, which I don't know where he found this, but they're like sold out. Like they kind of went out.
It was in the very back of the shelf. It was on the very back.
That's actually what he said. He was like, it was kind of tucked away somewhere. So he got super lucky.
Yeah.
But if you find a bottle of that Founders Collection, it is phenomenal. It's one of the best ryes I've ever had. Just incredibly silky. Something we didn't talk about so far, but we don't chill filter anything at all. So everything stays really, really thick and chewy and silky and oily that, when it's cask strength, it is incredibly oily and creamy. We're going to do that 2 times a year. Those Founders Collection bottles are going to come out 2 times a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. So our next one is going to be coming out in the spring around, around Derby Day.
Okay.
Let's say around May. And that one is actually going to be a really old bourbon. So over a decade old bourbon that we are finishing in Mizunara oak casks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it is. I've been doing some early tasting on it. And it is,
Of course you have.
it is intense.
So I was looking at
intense.
I was looking at the legs on these, and at first I was like, "Wow, there's no legs on this whatsoever. What's going on?" And then I looked, and I'm like, "Oh no, it is really holding on to the glass.
Yeah,
it's
They're
like
so thick they almost don't exist because it's just that broad horizon.
yeah,
of clinging to the glass.
I was like, oh. There's no legs because it's not dripping down. It's just
Right, it's just
stuck there. It's on it. It's and yes, I was gonna say these have both been silky. The second one, the high gold, says much more silk taste to it as well.
Creamy, silky feel?
Not silk. Yeah, it's just
sure.
Yeah,
Just like silky cream.
Silky.
Yeah.
You know
Or
what?
creamy silk.
Either way you look at it, it's amazing. It
Yes.
really this is an amazing experience. I don't want to say it's amazing, but it's an amazing experience when it comes to bourbon because it's something different that you don't expect.
yeah.
For me personally, I cannot wait to dive into this just a little bit further.
Yeah.
And have a good time with it, but share it with my friends. And share it with you,
That's the
Adam. And
important thing.
sharing it with you has been an amazing experience at that. I cannot thank you enough for being here with the Man Cave Happy Hour. If folks want to look at potentially doing a tour with Rabbit Hole
And all the virtual stuff
and all
you
the
do.
virtual stuff that you do, where can folks really get involved?
So you can always go to our website, rabbitholedistillery.com, and see what's available there. Right now the virtual tours are kind of just on like I'm doing those in like Facebook groups and for bourbon groups, stuff like that. If you have a bourbon group, you can reach out to me at adam@rabbitholedistillery.com. I know it's a really tough email, so I'll say it again, adam@rabbitholedistillery.com. Reach out to me if you've got a bourbon group. We'll set something up and we'll do a little tour through the distillery. If you go to YouTube, we've actually got a 360 tour, a 360-degree tour on our YouTube page, and if you can actually sit there and like touch the screen on your phone and like drag it and look all the way around because we did it with a special camera. But hopefully, I'll be setting up some more of these virtual tours very soon for the public, where I'm just going to be walking around with the selfie stick and people telling me, "Hey, take a look, get closer to the still, or dive into the mash tank, or whatever," and I'll get them nice and close to everything.
That's amazing. Your work is incredibly important for folks to really understand, again, the legacy that Rabbit Hole is trying to leave behind and Cave's family and the thing that what you do, the work that you do, and just trying to keep that word alive. What could folks expect in the next 5 years from Rabbit Hole?
Yeah, so I think that we're going to keep our core expressions going and just continue to age them even more and see what happens with those flavors. Expect to see more cask strength offerings.
Ooh.
Expect to see different finishes. I was just hanging around the back end of our production earlier today and taking pictures because that's like all I do. I'm just, even though I'm in this job, I'm such a fanboy. Like I'm just always like, oh my gosh, you're emptying a barrel. Can I hang out? Like, yeah, sure. Like whatever, weirdo. And so I just walked by these 2 huge casks, and they were Armagnac casks, and I'm like, all right, we're doing some Armagnac finishes in here. Very cool. I think that's the name of the game. I know one thing that Cave has been talking a lot about recently are single malts, American single malts, and so I haven't been tasting any of those lately. I'm guessing he's waiting to kind of throw those at me in the sensory panel a little bit later, but tasting some of these American single malts, that might be the future for American whiskey. Bourbon's always going to be there, but to really do something different, maybe some neat single malt expressions, which have just been barely touched on in this industry.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot of that from Rabbit Hole as well.
Man, I can't wait. You know, when that comes out, let us know.
Yeah.
We'll be knocking on the door, you know, saying, let
You're
me in.
number 3 on the
Let
list.
me
I got a couple people love you, and then you. Yeah, absolutely.
Fair. But, you know, if there's anything that Rabbit Hole is doing here in the future, please, you know, let us know. We'd love to share the story.
Yeah.
Love to let everyone know what's going on. And if folks are trying to get down on the Bourbon Trail, now that they can go and visit you as a heritage, you know what? You know what? Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And we cannot wait to visit the Rabbit Hole Distillery here in the.
Can't wait to have you.
Yeah.
Cannot wait to have you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Adam, thank you so much. And cheers.
Cheers. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right. After this sponsor. What sponsor?
All right.
Don't go anywhere, Adam.
No, we're here. We're clear.
Just going to clean up. Hey, you know, Adam, that was a lot of fun.